Ever heard about the guy who thought his car was haunted because it wouldn't start? Turns out his car wasn't possessed, it was just a dead battery. Welcome to the mysterious world of automotive batteries, where the signs of impending doom are as subtle as a hiccup in the middle of a first date. Just like a hiccup, a dying battery has a funny way of showing itself at the least convenient times. Let's talk about some of the most common signs of a dead or dying battery. Imagine you're trying to start your car, but it's taking longer than a sloth running a marathon. That, my friends, is called a slow engine crank. And it's as clear a signal as a neon sign saying, "Dead battery ahead." Now picture this. You're driving at night, and your headlights are as dim as a candle in a windstorm. You're squinting to see the road, but it's like trying to read a book in a dark room. Well, those dim headlights might just be your battery's way of telling you it's time for a nap. And then there's the granddaddy of all signs, the need for frequent jump starts. If your car needs a jump start more than a coffee addict needs a caffeine fix, it's a pretty safe bet that your battery is on its last legs. It's like when your grandpa needs a push to get up from the couch. You know it's time to call in reinforcements. These are just a few of the telltale signs that your battery might be about to join the big car park in the sky. And remember, your car's battery is its heart. Without it, your car is just a big, expensive lawn ornament. So, if your car is acting more like a stubborn mule than a wild stallion, it might just be your battery waving a white flag. Before you can replace a battery, you gotta find it first. And no, it's not the thing that looks like an oversized soda can in the engine. Now let's play a little game of hide and seek with your car battery. You see, the battery is the beating heart of your ride. It's usually tucked away somewhere under the hood like a shy critter. But don't worry, it's not playing hard to get. Most of the time, it's sitting right up front, just waiting to be noticed. Look for something that's about the size of a shoebox, only a bit more rectangular. It's got a couple of cables sticking out of it, like a pair of antennas on a space alien's head in a B-grade sci-fi movie. And it's got a label on it that's got more fine print than a legal document. So, while it might not exactly scream, "Look at me," with a bit of hunting, you'll find it. Now, identifying the type of battery can be a bit like decoding hieroglyphics. You're looking for a label with letters and numbers that look like they've been picked out of a Scrabble bag. But don't fret, they're not as random as they seem. They actually tell you the type, size, and power rating of the battery. For instance, if you see something like 12V, that's not a secret code. It just means that your battery operates at 12 volts. If you see CCA followed by a number, that's the cold cranking amps. Basically, how much power your battery can deliver to start your car on a cold morning. So, put on your detective hat and get to know your battery. It's not as enigmatic as it seems. And remember, it's not about the size of the battery in the fight, but the size of the fight in the battery. Or something like that. Congratulations! You found the culprit. Now let's get to the fun part. Breaking up is hard to do, especially when it involves a car battery. But don't worry, I'll guide you through it. Breakups can be messy and complicated, but this one, well, it's more about unscrewing a few bolts and less about emotional baggage. Imagine your old battery as that ex who just won't take a hint. It's time to say goodbye, and the first step is disconnecting. Now, it's crucial to remember that car batteries have a negative and a positive terminal. And like in every breakup, there's a right order to do things. Just as you wouldn't pack up your ex's stuff before breaking up with them, you wouldn't want to disconnect the positive terminal first. That could lead to a sparky situation, and not the romantic kind. So let's avoid any potential fireworks and start with the negative terminal. It's usually black or has a big minus sign, like your ex's attitude. Loosen the nut on the negative terminal with a wrench and gently remove the cable. Be careful not to tug or pull. Remember, we're aiming for a clean break. Next, it's time to disconnect the positive terminal. It's typically red or has a big plus sign, like all the extra time you'll have once you're done with this. Repeat the same process. Loosen the nut, then remove the cable. Now that you've untangled yourself from the old battery, it's time to lift it out of the car. This is the part where you physically move on. But be warned, car batteries are heavy, much like the weight of past relationships. Use both hands, lift with your legs, not your back, and gently set it aside. But don't throw it out just yet. Like your ex's old t-shirt, it may still be useful. Many retailers offer a refund for your old battery when you buy a new one. It's like getting back those concert tickets you bought together, but in a less heartbreaking way. And just like that, you're single again. But not for long, because we've got a new battery waiting in the wings. Now that you've said goodbye to your old battery, it's time to welcome the new one. Don't worry, they're not the jealous type. First things first, let's place our shiny new battery in the battery tray. Think of it as tucking in a baby into a crib. But remember, this baby weighs about 40 pounds and doesn't wear diapers. Now let's get down to the connection business. Remember that red cable we disconnected from the old battery? That's the positive cable, and it's the first one we're going to connect to our new battery. Think of it as the first kiss on a date. You wouldn't skip that, would you? So locate the positive terminal on your new battery. It's typically marked with a plus sign or the letter P, and is often larger than the negative terminal. Once you've found it, attach the positive cable to it. Use your wrench to tighten it, but don't go overboard. We're not trying to strangle the poor thing. All right, now that we've got that first kiss out of the way, it's time to move on to the second base, the negative terminal. This one's usually marked with a minus sign or the letter N. Connect the negative cable to it and tighten it just like we did with the positive one. Remember, it's a gentle cuddle, not a wrestling match. Now you might be thinking, why the positive first? Well, if you connect the negative terminal first, there's a chance you could cause a short circuit if your wrench accidentally touches any metal part of the car. And trust me, that's a spark you don't want to see on a date with your car. Once everything is connected and tightened, give the cables a little wiggle. They should be snug, not loose. If they're too loose, tighten them up a bit more. Voila! You've successfully played matchmaker for your car and its new battery. But remember, keep things PG under the hood. All right, let's do a quick recap, but don't worry, there won't be a pop quiz at the end. So what have we learned, folks? Well, first off, we've delved into the perplexing world of the dead battery. We've discovered that it's not just an excuse to miss work on Mondays. When your car refuses to start, or the lights are dimmer than a candle in a coal mine, it's time to suspect the battery. Next, we've mastered the art of battery identification. Remember, it's not about picking out the prettiest one, it's about finding the one that matches your vehicle. It's not a beauty pageant, it's more like a compatibility test. So don't be swayed by those shiny labels and fancy colors. Look for the cold cranking amps, reserve capacity, and the right group size. After that, we ventured into the thrilling saga of removing the old battery. Remember, safety first. You don't want to end up looking like Frankenstein's assistant. Gloves, goggles, and disconnecting the negative terminal first are your best friends. And remember, lift with your knees, not your back. We don't want any battery changing related injuries now, do we? Then we moved on to the grand finale, installing the new battery. Here, it's all about doing the reverse of what you did to remove the old one. Connect the positive terminal first, then the negative. And don't forget to give it a good clean before you install it. A clean battery is a happy battery. So, there you have it. From identifying a bad battery to replacing it, we've covered all the bases. And remember, if all else fails, there's no shame in calling a professional. After all, they're the ones with the fancy tools and the snazzy overalls. And there you have it, folks. You're now a bona fide battery expert. Give yourself a pat on the back and maybe a celebratory honk of your newly rejuvenated car horn.